And without going into great detail, you can find out a lot more about us on our website and in between. But I can tell you that this is a good time for us because things are actually changing and things are actually turning, largely through your support. And most of the time in the office, it's myself, Christian McBride, my co-director when he's in town, and Wilhelmina Grant. You all know Wilhelmina.
That's right.
And so when we have a room filled full of jazz lovers and people in our jazz family, and all I can say is that nothing makes us happier. I'd like to welcome you all. And Christian and I guess just give a little bit of background about the museum and what we've been up to and what our mission is, and then we'll segue very quickly to the main event for this evening. Christian, would you like to?
Thank you, Loren. It's a pleasure to see all of you this evening, as always. The main mission, I'll get right to the point. I think the mission for the Jazz Museum in Harlem is for Harlem to have a firm home base for jazz. So many art forms in this country have been celebrated on very different levels. And I think all of us feel somewhat that jazz still has not been celebrated on the level that it should be. And it is our plan to rectify that with the Jazz Museum in Harlem. And we'd like to thank all of you who have supported us, and particularly all of you who come to Harlem Speaks. It's becoming quite an event. The word is spreading all uptown, way north of 126th Street where we are now, and further downtown in Brooklyn and the Bronx and Queens, and the word is even getting out to California, believe it or not. So thank you all, and tonight we have a very, very special guest. I think you want to say a couple of words?
I was just going to amplify and say, actually, Christian, last week, 2 weeks ago, we had a bunch of people from Europe who came. Not that they came from Europe expressly here, but they came here just for this. But you know, talking about people who came here, this guy, I've known him for 30 years. He's one of the great jazz fans. He had surgery today. And he wouldn't miss this thing tonight. This is burlesque. He had surgery today. And here he is.
That's the kind of dedication that makes, you know, everything so worthwhile.
But I will tell you, you know, as we all know, in the musical constellation that is jazz music, forget the word jazz. Let's say American music. Let's forget the word American. Let's say music. I think it's fair to say there's no name that stands higher than the name of Duke Ellington. I think that's a fact. And let's hear it for Duke Ellington. But that's a fact. And actually, as we introduce our guest, I just want to, one more thing. I'd like to acknowledge in the audience tonight, we have some of our previous Harlem Speaks guests, pillars of the arts world and cultural worlds. And right in our front row, someone who you may know because she's one of our mainstays here. And 2 weeks ago, if you missed the jam session we had, which Milt sang, but more about that in a moment, this former dancer from the Apollo Theater and very well-known person around New York City got up and danced with us, Taja.
Yeah.
As I said, no name stands higher. We have in the house this evening some of the main folks from an organization called the Duke Ellington Society, of which I was a former board member and still very, very much involved with and would like to be more involved. And we have one of the former presidents, Morris Hodara is here. And current president, the man who keeps the engine running, Dr. Ray Carmen. And hello to everyone else who's here, because if I start introducing everyone, we'll be here all night. But I just wanted to announce those special people. Oh, and one more thing. We said a prayer, if you remember, last time we were here for our good friend Naomi Johnson. And there's good news. And the good news is that she has come out of her coma, that she's speaking, trying to communicate. Some of the paralysis is dissipating. And, you know, there's two ways of looking at health. You're either on the way up or on the way down. She's on the way up. So we will keep her in our minds, and a lot of her dear friends are in the audience tonight. As I said, no one stands higher in the musical world than Duke Ellington. And I can tell you, and I'm sure that Christian can, as musicians, the people who were selected by Ellington to play in his band and be featured, those are the magic people that were touched by something. And what more can you say about Milt Grayson? Because we're going to find out that he does a lot more beyond just Duke Ellington, because I saw him on stage at the Metropolitan Opera House, but that's something else. Ladies and gentlemen, Milt Grayson.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome.
Mm.
The way we do this is, yeah, sure, yeah. He's surrounded here. And this seat is higher than the others, I have to say, and that was not done on purpose. I'll see if I can bring it down. It's not one of those power poised moves that
Sure, Loren.
it just happens every week, but it does look funny. Yeah, I'll fix it. Mel, I guess I'd like to start. You know, we videotape these things for the archives. I would say not the future archives, the present archives of the Jazz Museum in Harlem. And so, just to get some things out of the way for the record, I'd like to ask some questions. Mel, where are you from? Where were you born, and
Okay.
how did music start for you?
Well, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, Kings County Hospital, in the county of Kings. And raised in the Pentecostal church. The time I was coming along, they used to use a phrase called Holy Rollers. And, saved, sanctified, and whatnot. My parents were, when I was born, they were members of the Pentecostal church. And that's where I started singing. And moved on from there to, well, I really wasn't supposed to be in show business at all. That was taboo. That was sin, I couldn't go to Apollo Theater, I couldn't go to dances, I couldn't go to, any of those things. So I was
Devil music, right?
devil music, The only thing I could listen to was the Metropolitan Opera, Milton Cross, and those kind of things. But that's where it started.
Just take us back to the part of Brooklyn you come from. What neighborhood was it? What was it like? And could you paint a picture for folks who weren't there? And I'm going to try and get a little bit more high on the mics here, because it's a little bit low.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll help. His
voice is so mellow.
You know?
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
There we go.
Well, there's a section in Brooklyn called Ocean Hill, Brownsville. Brooklyn Street, Saratoga Avenue. At the time when I was coming along, the 8th Avenue subway was it ran as far as it would go. I lived at the other end, which was at Rockaway Avenue. That was the last stop on the 8th Avenue subway. The church I attended was the St. Mark's Holiness Church, which is on Howard Avenue in Fulton Street. And I had a little quartet. I was in a group called the Brooklyn Crusaders. And we sang, we did all the gospel things. And, we patterned ourselves after the Golden Gate Quartet, Dixie Hunbirds. That's the period where I came along.
How did your family wind up in Brooklyn? Where did they come to Brooklyn from?
Well, my mother, she came from Beaufort, South Carolina. All right.
Joe Frazier.
Right, that's right. And my father came from Baltimore, Maryland, and they met in Brooklyn. And I'm Milton B. Grayson, Jr. I'm the firstborn, and that's where they got together, and that's when I came to the world.
Again, as we record these things for the archives, Milt, could you paint a picture of your folks? What would you like people to remember and know about?
Well, I had a beautiful father and mother. My father worked very hard. He was very, very faithful to the church. He was really, saved and sanctified, and spent every day. He went to work, got up 5 o'clock in the morning, went to Western Electric Company, which was in Kearny, New Jersey. At the time they called it a tube. He took that, got up and said his prayers, went out to work. After work he came home, put his stocking cap on, and got ready to go to church. And that's what he went to church. And my mother she had a beautiful voice. She sang in the choir, but she didn't attend church too much. She more or less was a mother, you know, that stayed home and she took care of the family. And they were just beautiful, you know, just beautiful parents. And looking at, you know, I can't say any more than that.
When you say the family, what comprised the Grayson family at that time?
Oh, it was 6 of us all together. I had 3 brothers and 2 sisters, and so that was a total of 6. And one other brother, Al, when he was 16 months apart, he sang. He also sang. He had a beautiful, you know, bass voice, and that was my family. And so I just went to church, played the tambourine, sang. I can play the tambourine now. But in fact, if anybody saw Pearly, the original production of Pearly, I played the tambourine in that. It was the opening number with Hopkins, Linda Hopkins. We were on the front row, and we ran down, and that was, so I learned, you know, studied that, not studied it, but that's where you just picked up an instrument in church, and so I picked up the tambourine, and on from there.
What was the neighborhood like that you grew up in?
It was a mixed neighborhood at the time I was coming along. Italian, Jewish, mainly Italian, Jewish, some German, and I think that as I look back on it, it was going through a transition, and because we had the Italian grocery store in the corner, and they would extend us credit. You know, my father would, you know, they would extend us credit, and would go down and they would write my mother sent me to the store, and then they put it in this book, and at the end of the week, my father would make it to the store, pay the bill, and then go on for another week, and that's the way it was during that period of time.
Now, if you don't mind my asking, I have
No.
a double pronged question. Growing up in Brooklyn at that time, this is a non-musical question. Almost every single musician or any person I met from Brooklyn was undoubtedly a big Dodger fan because of Jackie Robinson.
Right.
Were you included in that bunch?
I was a big Dodger fan before Jackie came onto the scene. You know, and but when they left to go to California, I was through with baseball. and the Yankees, no. It's nothing like that. So I was a Dodger fan.
Wow. And the other part of that question is, I like to hear about your transition into secular music, because I hear a lot of musicians talk about, you know, how their families were so deeply rooted in the church. You know, anything other than gospel music was considered devil music. You know, so I'm kind of curious to hear how you
into this part of the world.
Yeah.
Well, what happened when I went to high school? There was a teacher. Well, naturally, I went into you know, the Glee Club and that sort of thing, and the teacher. I went to this Glee Club class, and the teacher there, her name was Ethel Bernstein. And I went to the class. She and I was singing and whatnot, and next thing you know, she said, "Come in." And I went to her, and next thing you know, she's, you know, sing so and so and so and whatnot. Next thing I know is there was a group, a very famous group at that time called the Melody Men, and out of Boys High School. That's the school I went to, Boys High School in Brooklyn. At that time it was just Boys High School, and it was Girls High School, and now it's Boys and Girls High School. And I was in this Melody Men. The Melody Men was like, they were top shelf in the city. And so anyway, you're eligible to try out for the All City Chorus of New York City. And so I tried out, and next thing you know, I'm in the All City Chorus. And what had happened, but at that time I was learning, only thing that I was singing was arias out of, you know, from the operas. And my favorite singers at that time was Ezio Pinza, Alexander Kipnis. I don't know if you know these names or whatnot. And what Pinza he did was Some Enchanted Evening, you know, so those things. So I had to learn these different arias from an opera called Simon Boccanegra, and the opera was, and the aria was Il Lacerato Spirito, and I learned, you know, by listening to the records and whatnot. So getting to when you get it. The members of the Oral City Chorus, when they were graduating that year, you were eligible to try out for this scholarship. And it was a Catherine Long Fellowship to the Juilliard School of Music. And all students who were graduating at that time were eligible to try out for this scholarship. And I had to learn, I learned this aria. And at that time, I'll take you back a little while. There was a big hit song at that time was "No Cowpoke Wind right now, when dark and windy day." Monroe.
Riders in the Sky.
Riders in the Sky. That's right. Yeah. All right. Ghost Riders in the Sky. I forgot to sing it. I think it's Monroe or something like that.
Vaughn Monroe.
Vaughn Monroe. All right. All right. I got
Somebody here will know.
taking me on that. Taking me back. And well, look, that song, "Il Lacerato Spirito," and that song, and so I sang that. I won the scholarship. It was a 4-year fellowship called the Catherine Long Fellowship, and it was a full scholarship there. And I went and I attended. Yes, I got into Juilliard, and that's my transition out of from the gospel into that world. That is as close as I got to jazz, but I didn't get there yet. And
Next chapter.
yeah, so that's how I happened, got out, and from there, that's how I met Catherine Dunham. You know, Catherine Dunham was one of the, well, she had her own company, production company, singers, dancers, musicians, and I was one of her singers. So what had happened, a friend of mine named Ned Wright, he was with a group called the, what's the name of that group? That was the Hootenanny days. Hootenanny, I don't know, but anyway, he was a member of this group. Anyway, he was at Juilliard. They were just coming out of at that time. A lot of the guys at Juilliard came out of the service, and they won the GI Bill, and he was one of those that came out of the. But anyway, he heard my name had gotten around in the school, and he came to check me out and whatnot. So he took me to see Catherine Dunham to sing for her. I'm not even thinking about show business at all. I mean, that's so far removed from my lifestyle and my plans. So anyway, I went down and he said, "Well, come on and sing." And she was at the Broadway Theater, the Broadway Theater downtown there, and she co-produced with Saul Hurok, the great impresario. And I went down and I sang "Old Man River."
I bet you did.
She was sitting way back there. And I said, "It's Old Man River." And next thing I know, I was on Broadway in one of her production company, production set called Lagya. And I didn't know, so she was going all the way to South America. And I said, "Wow, South America!" All the closest I got to South America was the Geographic magazines. And so that's how I got it. That's how that part of show business came to be. And on my way to South America, and we went all over. I stayed in South America over a year. See, she toured. I mean, there was no one-nighters and all like at that time. There was no one-night. Set up production. Stayed in most places at least a month. 2 weeks. So we went to Brazil first, Recife, Belém, Rio, Sao Paulo, and stayed there, months and whatnot, and Sao Paulo at the Teatro Municipal. And then from there we went into Argentina, Buenos Aires, and then there's a resort called Mar del Plata. And I was singing, so I had, anyway, I had a solo spot. And the solo spot was a song, it's a Cuban lament that I sang called Son. Ay, mi linda canción, que le canto a mi amor. And we then had these dancers behind me. And anyway, we went to, so I was one of her featured singers. So when we got to Argentina, I was singing that song. We had a command performance. We were asked to perform at the Teatro Colón, which is one of the great theater and opera houses in the world, for Evita Perón. And I sang that song, and so, you know, she gave me this beautiful silver medallion and whatnot. So that happened. Then we went on from there. We went on to Lima, Peru, Quito, Ecuador, and all over Colombia, Medellin, Cartagena.
Uruguay, did you meet them?
Oh, Uruguay, yeah, definitely Uruguay, yeah, Montevideo. And let me see, it was Bogota, Colombia, all those different places. And went on to what's the other? Venezuela, Caracas, all these places. I'm a youngster, baby in the company, and here I was thrust into this, and so that's how I started out in business.
I have a couple of questions. What happened at Juilliard? So you were at Juilliard, and then you got the gig, and then I assume, like a lot of people, you left school to go to a real gig.
Well, you mean what happened at Juilliard? Well, I studied. I studied with a teacher, Horace D. Johnson. And that's where I studied Italian diction. So therefore, I was able to sing in Spanish because the languages are very close, and so it was very easy for me to fall into the Spanish language. And so I, piano and the diction and some German diction. I went to those are the things I studied while I was there. So with vocal scholarship.
Sure.
So.
Is this when Juilliard was up on Claremont?
Okay,
22nd?
that's where.
Or where it is now?
That's where it was up there where Manhattan School of Music is now. That's where I traveled all the way from Rockaway Avenue, 8th Avenue subway, all the way up to 125th Street. I mean, went back 116.
116th or 125th?
Yeah, right. I forgot what it was at that time. But anyways, it's 120th in Claremont.
Right.
That was the address, 120th in Claremont. So that's
what was it like going to Juilliard at that time? Was it an integrated kind of place at that time? Was it a school with, what was it like?
Well,
What was it like for you?
It was quite integrated, and that time when I attended Juilliard, they changed. They were under the wedge system. Wedge. He was the president of Juilliard. But anyway, he had his system, and they changed from that the year that I came in to literature and materials of music.
That was right.
That's the subject they have now, but it changed that year when and so.
What year was that?
Craig, interviewing 101.
Okay.
They were wondering. They were wondering. I could feel it. I could feel it.
I'll give it up later.
Okay.
1901.
Yeah, right. Well, when you found out, I guess the opposite, when you found out that you're getting into Juilliard, did they send smoke signals or did they send letters? It was so long ago, that was my bad.
Smoke signals.
What decade? What decade? What decade?
What decade?
Probably
Okay.
The 60s, 50s.
49.
Thank you, sir.
All right?
1949.
Yeah, not 1849. 1949, when I was my college for Juilliard. That's all right, everything is cool.
Now you mentioned that.
Greg had to know about it.
Now they said, we mentioned the name Duke Ellington. I mentioned, a pillar name, and then you dropped the name Catherine Dunham.
Right.
Catherine Dunham. And I'm wondering, again, for folks who are going to be watching this film many years from now, tell us about Catherine Dunham, what she was like as a person, and what were the shows actually like?
Well, Catherine Dunham, those that don't know, was a great choreographer. She's an anthropologist,
That's right.
apologist, and anthropologist, and she choreographed beautifully. Her shows were spectacular. The costumes. At that time, okay, I mean, the dancers, some of the dancers that were there was, her name was Julie Robinson, and her name is Julie Belafonte. Frances Taylor was Frances Davis. These are the people that were in the company. And you know, Frances Davis was quite a ballerina. She's out of Chicago. She did, you know, she did the toes and all that sort of thing. So these are, you know, some of the people that were in the company. And, right, she did the toes. And Dunham, her shows, well, all the dancers, the girls and the ladies, they were beautiful. And the dancers, they had, you know, the male dancers had these beautiful bodies and whatnot. And the shows she put on were, you know, we did things in, sang songs in Portuguese rather, you know, and naturally in Spanish and Shango, these things, you know, Shango, all these kind of things that I had to learn. And then she had a segment in there, the Roaring Twenties. As a matter of fact, somebody else was in the company at that time, Claudia McNeil. She had a beautiful contralto voice. And nobody, very few people, you know, knew about that. And she, at that time, speaking of that, Catherine Dunham choreographed a song to Billie Holiday's "Southern Trees Bear Strange Fruit," and Julie, her name was Robinson then, and she did she played the lead part in the choreography, and but Claudia McNeil, she sang, the first time I heard that song, and she's just beautiful. Anyway, she had these great, you know, great voices and great dances, and the shows were just fabulous shows. She did all kinds of things, out of Haiti, things out of Cuba.
But was it like a story from beginning to end, or was it separate segments like a vaudeville show kind of thing, or was it, and did someone announce, or was there a program?
No, have you ever seen the Alvin Ailey show?
Yeah, that's right.
On that order.
Okay.
The numbers, that kind of thing, you know. And she danced beautifully, and the body she had on her, oh my God, you know. She danced, and she danced with a diamond in her belly button, and she did the thing. I don't know if anybody did you see? I guess they saw the movie. What is it?
The documentary?
No, the motion picture. Cabin in the Sky.
Yeah, Cabin in the Sky.
Diamond in that sort of thing, you know. And she, anyway. So I don't know what else. But her shows were great. They were beautiful.
So you stayed on tour?
I'm not sure what you get.
Yeah, it's on. You stayed on tour with her for how long?
Well, at least almost a year and a half in South America. And that's the first part of it. And then after when I got back home, I I volunteered, you know, for the service because they were looking for me. So I said, well, I'm not going into the Army, so I went into the Air Force. And stayed very short time, a month and 25 days. I had asthma, and I didn't know I had asthma, and it sort of affected me at that time. And then next thing I know, Dunham sent somebody all the way to Brooklyn, because she had a school, 43rd Street, around the corner, like from the Paramount Theater, you know. Marlon Brando and all others used to, you know, go to that school, and he studied, you know, drumming and whatnot. And so she sent someone out there, a guy named Walter Nix, to my house on Fulton Street, and my apartment, rather, our apartment on Fulton Street. And next thing, she was on her way to Europe. And called me, wanted me to go, and I went to Europe with her. We went on the Ile-de-France. Went on that little sail on over to Europe, went into Paris, Le Havre, and stayed in Paris. Let me see, went in October. Didn't leave Paris after Christmas, after the holidays. So that's how long I was in Paris. And we was at the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées. And Matter of fact, it was just back there not too long ago with Quincy Jones. It's like circle coming around, right? And so then from there, because we always passed by not the Eiffel Tower, but the Arc de Triomphe, because we lived in, I think it's Etoile, right in the 5 stars or whatever in that area, and we used to pass by there all the time going to that theater. And stayed there that amount of time, up and down the Champs-Élysées, and then I went on to, then we went over with the Channel. No, we went to London. London, and there's a show there now. We played at a theater called the Cambridge Theater. And there's a famous show there right now. What's this gentleman's name that has this the show on TV? They made an opera out of it.
Oh, the opera about Jerry Springer.
Jerry Springer. That show is in that particular theater.
There's an opera where he goes to hell.
That's where we performed. We stayed there for quite a while, and left there, went off from there, across the English Channel, went to Ireland. Belfast, Ireland, and Dublin, Ireland. And after that, I came on back, and that's when I met my wife, with children of mine, family and whatnot, and I went back to New York, and that was it.
I have a question. In these Catherine Dunham shows,
Right.
would you have like a spot like where you would sing a song and come out, or was it part of a production number with people dancing and you'd be singing?
Production number.
Got it.
That's what the number I did was let me see, song. Oh God, what was it? Production? Anyway, the dancers came out, and I had this. When I came out with I had sort of these pantaloons and bare chest, this hat over my head and something over my shoulder, and I came down this ramp and whatnot, singing song. And full orchestra, strings, the whole bit. And so that's where it was. She had the whole full production, the whole thing,
What was she like? Can you tell us a little bit about Kat?
Great, wonderful person, beautiful, warm, sweet. We called her Miss D, and she was quite an intellect. As a matter of fact, I want to get back to one thing. South America, all didn't go too well. When I say that, we're in South. That's the first time I experienced discrimination. That was in Sao Paulo. And Sao Paulo is Sao Paulo was to Brazil as New York is to the United States, business area, and a lot of Europeans were in Sao Paulo. And we had a big thing, Dunham made the front pages and whatnot, the fact that they had this discrimination and whatnot. So that was the first time that I experienced it. I didn't know anything about that sort of thing, Brooklyn and whatnot, sheltered by the church. And so that's the first time I encountered that. So I wanted to bring that fact out there at the time. So Dunham was a beautiful person. And she confronted him, and she was able to handle it very well.
How did she make her thing work? I mean, a black woman in those days founding a dance company in the 1930s and 1940s. I mean, it's mind-boggling. What was at the root of her genius or her ability to make things happen?
Well, she found these dancers, that were, I don't know if you know the name Tally Beatty. Tally Beatty.
Danny Banana.
Danny Oh, yeah, but he came a little later on.
Something's wrong with you guys have an audio
Really?
off. We can hardly hear you. All three
Can you hear
mics
me?
are off. All three mics.
It's
are
off?
No, this is on. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's
They're all distorted.
Hello?
They're all
Okay.
distorted. Everything is.
Why don't you turn that speaker and angle it just a little bit more towards the center? Because I think what you're getting is the hypodermic swing.
Oh yeah, I hear it. I hear it.
All three are doing it.
No, it's not. It's only this one. There it sounds fine.
The three mics.
Really? You do the
Turn in the
old-fashioned way.
center a little bit more.
No, so we turn it this way?
Yeah, see if that.
Oh,
Check.
hello. Hello, you've reached movie phone.
Is that way? That's my other job, I haven't told you. Catherine Dunham and what it was that just made her able to do what she did, because it was a miracle, actually.
Well, she had dancers that were dedicated to her. She took them as youngsters, and so therefore she didn't have to pay them so much money, if any at all, and they were dedicated to the dance. She was able to pull these students together, and then when she got us, I think it was Bal Negra, I think that was one of her first shows, and then she was able to pay them. But I think she was one of the first female, black or white, to produce on Broadway at that time, with Salty Rock, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. So, but anyway, I really can't tell you how she got the dances together, but she came out of Chicago, Joliet, Illinois, and moved on and got these dances together, and they dedicated, and they worked. They worked.
So you went to South America, you went to Europe, you came
Right.
back to New York, and what happened?
Well, I came into New York, and showbiz-wise, I met my first. I got a manager by the name of Clyde Otis. I don't know if you know that name.
Yeah.
Great songwriter,
Right.
Brooke Benton,
Right.
and all those kind of things, you know. And what a difference a day made. So is that, I believe he wrote that one. Who wrote that? 24 Little Hours. I think he.
If you keep singing, it'll come.
Right. Okay. So anyway, and then I did a.
I'm sorry, did
Go
you
ahead.
find him or did he find you?
Well, okay. What had happened? Oh God, what is his name? Well, he found me. Actually, he found me and took me to a show that. Oh God. God, I can't get the name. The great. What was his name? Anyway, he had the some amateur hour sort of thing. No. This is in Harlem. You see this picture going on, running around on cable now. Ralph Cooper. There you go. Good, right. Ralph Cooper, and that's when I met Mr. 5x5. And so anyway, that's how I met him. Then the next thing, he took me to a place called, there was a club called the Savannah Club. And the Savannah Club had all these beautiful dancers, you know, mostly black dancers, and it was in the Village. And that's when I started singing in clubs and whatnot, so far removed from the opera world, and moved on from there.
So you're coming out of a world with Laureates Melchior and Tibbet and
Ezio Pinza
and UC
To Catherine,
Bjorling and all these and all these wonderful people. What sounds in the world of popular singing crossed your ears that you liked? Because I imagine that you had a very special threshold that you wanted to hear from singers in terms of intonation, I assume, and pitch and diction. Who were the pop singers who pleased you?
Well, at that time, you know, the great Billy Eckstein, Nat Cole, Arthur Prysock, Al Hibbler, all right. Matter of fact, we'll get to that.
Okay, right.
But those are the singers, you know, that I admired and sort of in my range of vocal. And of course, it's Paul Robeson. And 'cause I was more or less in that vein at the time, vocally. Because I'm really, you know, vocally I'm a bass baritone rather than baritone. So I sang, you know, in those keys and that sort of thing. So there is a difference between a baritone and a bass baritone.
Could you speak for a moment, you know, with Paul Robeson, a lot of great books, a lot of great documentaries all about his life and what happened to him, and his son is still very much alive, and his daughter. But as a singer, I find people don't talk about him as a singer that much anymore. He's a symbol for a bunch of other stuff, which is very important too. But as a singer, for you as a young man, could you talk about what Paul Robeson meant to you and what you listened for and maybe what records you enjoyed or just...
Well, of course, there was of course, the Old Man River, which I loved, and the spirituals that he sang. Well, I didn't know too many. I loved his voice, and I loved the songs that he sang, but I wasn't really in tuned as such at that time. But I loved the things that he did, basically.
Who were some of the artists that you went to hear in person? Who were some of the... Did you get to hear Nat Cole and all those folks in person?
I couldn't go to the theaters. I couldn't step foot in the Apollo Theater. See, there was a member of the church, and during that time, the church members, certain church members got a license to solicit, and they had their favorite spots. And her favorite spot was the Apollo Theater. So I couldn't even sneak into the Apollo Theater.
So they go to the show but watch to make sure that nobody else came in?
No, she was outside.
Oh, outside.
She was outside. So
You know what I mean?
I don't know if she went inside.
Trying to get people to do it.
Standing there with the cup
Right.
and whatnot, and so therefore I couldn't go to the Apollo. I couldn't go to dances. I couldn't. That's why I say it's a miracle I'm in show business.
But once you came back from Europe with Catherine and hooked up with Clyde Otis, then obviously you were able to have your own free will to go wherever you wanted.
Oh yeah, well I'm a grown man now,
Yeah,
and I wasn't at home anymore.
Yeah,
so I could do what I wanted to do, and so that's when I.
So did you go back to, did you start working right away, or, what did Clyde?
Well, that's why I had this club date at the Savannah Club.
Right.
And a few gigs here and there, but after what had happened, that's when my domino days came into being. Billy Ward and the Dominoes, Jackie Wilson.
Right.
That's the period I
Clyde McFadden, right?
well, Clyde McFadden was the original
Right.
member,
Right.
and Jackie Wilson took his spot. And I met him. We met Billy Ward. There was a writer called, he wrote in Jet magazine called Major Robinson. Yes. And Major Robinson introduced me to Billy Ward. And I went to sing for Billy Ward. He was staying downtown, I think, at the Sheraton Hotel. And I was waiting tables at the Savoy Ballroom. They had the thing, the table, what they call setups, the ice bucket and this and that. At that time, it was, and I was at the Savoy and for that period, and oh God, Erskine Hawkins played a lot there. Erskine Hawkins, the guy the baton all the time. No.
Jimmy Lawson.
No.
Chick Webb.
Lucky Millender. Lucky Millender played a lot there and whatnot. So that's when I met Billy Ward, and next thing you know, I sang for him. Went on into Las Vegas. We went to Las Vegas, and that's really when that side of show business started happening. We went in with Billy Ward, and we went to the Sahara Hotel, and he stayed there he used to work there 6 months out of the year, and opposite Louis Prima and Keely Smith, and that's when Vegas, you had the Frontier Hotel over here, you had Sahara Hotel over here, you had the Dunes over here, very few hotels, but now you can't even walk in Vegas, I understand. Well, I know that because I've been there a few times after that. And so we worked the Sahara Hotel and went on and worked we opened the Hacienda chain in Las Vegas. We played for that chain. They had another place in Fresno, California. And from Fresno, we went to Fresno and came back and opened a hotel, the Hacienda Hotel. And that's when I met Elvis Presley. He came in because he was just starting with his hit, Heartbreak Hotel. And so anyway, Las Vegas, and we went to Lake Tahoe, the Harris, that's right, Harris and Lake Tahoe. They just had a lounge and they didn't even have a big room. And moved on from there, and after that, we played we did the Colgate Comedy Hour, coast to coast, and at that time, Al Hibbler had the hit song, Unchained Melody. So anyway, I sang that song, coast to coast, in the Colgate Comedy Hour. So that was, that was one of the things that happened. I moved on from there to other things. So that later on down the road, and I left the Dominoes, and
No, I'm sorry. How
Go ahead.
long did you stay out with them? How long were
about 3 years.
3 years.
Right, but mostly Las Vegas. So we would have to, at that time we had the deadhead. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, we had the deadhead from New York to Las Vegas. We couldn't stop anywhere. We could stop, but there was no hotels or nothing. So I got a taste of that, going up and down the road, and no places for us to deal with and whatnot. And we called it deadhead from New York to Las Vegas. Before I got into that, let me get into one other thing. At that time, I went into, there was a choir called the Leonard DePore Choir, Leonard DePore Infantry Chorus. And I was in that choir. I was, came into that choir. We toured. That's when I got my first taste of one-nighters. And
That's all you needed, right?
there's Mrs. DePore right there, the wife of Leonard DePore. And Norma DePore. Norma. So Leonard DePore, that was quite an experience for me. So he did great choir.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody would be familiar with the choir. And I'm trying to think of somebody that was. But anyway, that was a period in my life. Then I got into the Billy Board and into the Dominoes. Moved on from there, and after the Dominoes, then I lived in California for a while. And that's when I became friends, met up with Sam Cooke, Lou Rawls, Jesse Belvin. We were all a little clique together out there in LA. And we hung around. I did some recordings with Keen Records. And there was a guy named...
Al Neely? Is that what it was?
No,
Sid Nathan?
no.
That's Bob Key.
No, not King.
Oh, okay.
Keen.
King, okay.
K-E-E-N. Everybody gets that mixed up. When you say Keen, they think of King. And they had this record company called, what was the name of the record company? Anyway, Sam Cooke, that's where Sam Cooke had his first hit record.
Specialty, wasn't it?
No, Specialty was, Sam Cooke left Specialty.
Right.
And with Bubs Blackwell,
Right.
who was a mentor to,
Little Richard.
well, he had Little Richard, right? But before that, because he came out of Seattle, Washington.
Right.
So he was there with Ray Charles,
right.
and Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
So anyway, he headed this company. He left Specialty Records and came over to Keen. His brother, I think I forgot the name of the brothers, but they were Greeks and they were dealing in oil. And
Bahari Brothers?
no, and so Bubs Blackwell brought me out from New York to record for Keen Records. Oh, I love that. Somebody got their cell phone working. So,
Please put all cell phones on silent.
and this is my train of song. So anyway, I recorded there with, and at that time there was a gentleman there by the name of who was one of the A&R men, and the first arrangements he made was on my recording. His name was Herb Alpert. Tijuana Brass. His law was called Tijuana Brass. And there was Lou Adler, who had the Mamas and the Papas. And
Right.
so this is that period when all that, the, what do you call it, the Beach Boys and all that kind of thing. During that period, there was a little guy running around at the time peddling records. Oh, God. he and his wife, Cher, Sonny Bono. That's what he was, Sonny Bono. He was hustling records and songs at the time, going around. Next thing I know, he had this. Then next thing you know, he had Sonny and Cher. So during that period, then I did club dates around in L.A. And the name got around, and next thing you know, I got this call. and from the ABC Corporation, and they asked me, would you like to, go down and go to Las Vegas and work with Duke Ellington? But now, mind you, I had worked in Las Vegas, 6 months, a year. So Vegas, so I thought I was going down there just for another gig, just to do it. I had no idea. I knew the name Ellington, but I did not know the significance of that name. So I went down going to another gig, and I went down and I think I sang, I went down and said, sure, I'd love to, going down, do this gig, and finish the gig and come on back. And I was at the Riviera Hotel. And he was in the lounge at the Riviera, and I went down. He said, fine. I said, okay. I said, but I don't have any charts arranged. Like, I need a chart for Ellington, that kind of thing. So I got into Ellington and went down, and I didn't have anything. I had a song that I could, but anyway, if nobody played for me, I could sing a song and stay in key and whatever. So the song I sang was Why Was I Born? Why was I born? Why was I living? Went down there, blow, blow, blow. Next thing you know, I'm with Duke Ellington. And that's how it happened. I went on the road from then on.
Didn't see everybody have such a good time.
Yeah.
Because how many times?
This is church.
How many times have you gone to an event, where people just sitting there like, and here it's always like we got to pull you apart to come back and sit down, which is a great thing. We're so happy about that. I want to mention Frederica, one of our volunteers. We have wonderful volunteers. Frederica and the lovely, is that pink? Would I call that pink? Peach?
Peach peach.
She's a peach, I should say. But anyway, she has our donation box. And I don't want to say that right now, we're running on fumes with the museum here. But anything you can do, we appreciate any contribution of any amount. It's all tax deductible. And I said it and got it out of the way. But some people even say, if I had only known. I said, well, now you know. So,
Like that sister that's in front of the Apollo.
We're not trying to keep anybody out, though.
Anyway, thank you so much, folks. As we come back for the second part, we've got Mr. Grayson joining the Duke Ellington Orchestra.
If you don't mind me chirping before we get started on part 2 of our festivities here, we were talking about some of the great doo-wop groups and like some of the great singers who came out of some of those groups. We talked about Clyde McFadden and Sam Cooke and Jackie Wilson and Wilson Pickett and Sam Cooke, a whole lot of people. How many, I'm sure you ran into a lot of those guys, like particularly when you were with the Dominoes.
Well, actually, the ones I ran into were, let me see, speaking of individuals, or are you speaking of?
Either or.
Well, yeah, like the Flamingos.
The Flamingos, right?
The Flamingos. There's Jesse Belvin, I forgot what group he was with. So actually, the guys that I really knew were the Flamingos.
Were the Orioles still together?
Yeah, they were happening, man. I never did run into the Orioles. Sonny Till,
Sonny Till and the Orioles, right.
And see, all those guys, I couldn't even go and see them. Billy Ward, their hit record was 60-Minute Man.
Right.
There's new girls, I'm telling you now, they call me Loving Man.
Right.
I can fool them all night long, 60-minute man. You don't leave them all, I say, come on, girl, shake your hand. When you let it go, you cry, oh yes, 60-minute man. Something like that. And so, some of the guys I knew
Platters,
that.
maybe?
Huh?
Platters, maybe?
Oh yeah. My man, oh God. Well, speaking of the Platters, okay, now you got me on the subject now. When I was first went with Billy Ward down by the Sahara Hotel, at that time they had a hotel on the west side, new hotel called the Moulin Rouge. Moulin Rouge was considered a black hotel, but everybody could go there, whereas you couldn't go on the strip and mix up. And in that show, so we went over, we went over to see the show, went to the opening and all that sort of thing, and we went over, dressed down and the whole bit. We were on the strip, So there was a group singing in their big room called the Platters, and they were poor. They didn't have suits alike, anything like that. We was on the strip. We had our,
Uniform.
what do you call it, the mohairs and all that sort of thing. And we had all white suits, But they had a trailer for us to dress in. So anyway, right, but anyway, we went over and they sang a song called "Only You." Okay, that was their first hit. And we went over there. Next thing we know, we were big time. Next thing we know, the Platters is all across the country with this big hit, "Only You." And they never looked back since. Only you can make the something like that. Anyway, and in the lounge was Ahmad Jamal at that time. So so anyway, I just wanted you to bring that in.
Yeah. I love it.
The great Ahmad Jamal. Go ahead.
Well, it was just great to hear you kind of go back and reminisce about that whole scene, because I think, particularly, a lot of musicians in my generation, they kind of sleep on that.
You're right.
We get so busy, caught up on the chord changes.
You're right.
We tend to forget all the great singers that came out of that era as well.
Right out of that, great singers, great ballad singers and whatnot. And then after the Dominoes, as I said, it was Duke Ellington, and then I really got a taste of One Night Is Then.
Now you say you got the call from ABC.
ABC, yeah, and it happened to be the same booking agent that Duke had at the time.
Right.
Well, Joe Glazer.
Right.
Joe Glazer.
Associated booking.
Booking. And they called me. I don't know how they got my name, what went down, and all that. They just called me out of clear blue sky, blow. I don't know what conversations went on. And anyway, next thing I know,
So you flew to Vegas to meet up with Duke.
With Duke, they were performing at the Riviera Hotel.
Could you give us a rundown on how that day went? Like the introduction to Duke and all of that stuff.
You know what? Went down. Duke. He's always pulling his pants up and whatnot. Okay. And young man, and just introduced himself, and he introduced himself to me and whatnot. So that was, and that's all it was, because I did not, mind you, I might bring this up. I knew the name Duke Ellington, but I didn't know how great a name it was at that time. It was just a name that I heard. The only song that was associated with him was Herb Jeffrey's Flamingo. And there was one record that he had out, what I really loved, was called The Hawk Talks.
Oh yeah.
By the drummer.
Louis Bell.
That was it. Other than that, I didn't know, because I think just before that, I think it was 57, Duke made his comeback at the Newport.
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing about that. Nothing. I was in a whole other world.
Right.
You understand? So when I left that world, I went into a new world. And I didn't recognize, till later on. Next thing I know, I'm with Duke Ellington. That's how my showbiz career went. I went from one. I've never wanted for a gig. I put it that way, so to speak. I went away from gigs, foolishly, you know. But I never really, because I've always gotten by on my pipes.
Wow.
That was it. So, but the Ellington, so touring up and down Ellington, and I was looking on the wall here. Well, anyway, we went to, before that, we went to, we performed at the Apollo Theater. And at that time, oh God, I'm trying to think of the group, these 5 ladies. Look in my eyes. Chantel, thank you. Trying to get the song together a little bit. Chantel. They were on the bill with it. We headlined the bill with Maury Decay. Maury Decay was the promoter. The show at the Apollo. At that time, we had a hit song called Stardust. That. Sometimes I wonder. Well, a guy named Gene Mumford sang the lead on that. As a matter of fact, it's one of the songs in the picture Goodfellas. Goodfellas. And so anyway, so on that show was a guy named Bobby Darin, and at that time, Fats Domino had a big hit with Blueberry Hill. So Bobby Darin was trying to sing like Fats Domino. He got in the piano.
You don't say.
You know, so that's what was happening. So anyway, next day we look up. Bobby Darin had Splish Splash, I was taking it back. I hadn't looked back since. So those are the things that, so anyway, that was the show that we were on, and we headlined at the Apollo, and went on, then we went back out to Las Vegas. And so getting back to Ellington, so we came into New York and played at a club called Basin Street East. And at that time, there was a young lady on the show called Gloria Lynn. Right there. Gloria Lynn was on the show with us at that time, Basin Street East, because I said, wow, we go back with Gloria. So she was quite a young singer at that time. So anyway, we got to that point.
I'd like to ask about this world that you entered into with all these folks. I was wondering if I could throw a few names out and just get your reaction. To begin with, Billy Strayhorn.
Well, Billy Strayhorn, Sweet Pea, wonderful, beautiful, and sweet, and really a sweet pea, man. He was, and so he rehearsed my songs. I mean, he rehearsed with me, wrote the charts for me. Matter of fact, he did a chart of Why Was I Born, Love You Madly, Day In, Day Out, you know, some other, I forgot the other songs right now. It comes to me. Strayhorn was living at the Masters Hotel, 103rd and Riverside Drive, in this beautiful little apartment with a patio and this great big grand piano in there. But anyway, and he could cook. He could burn. He could burn. And I go there and I rehearse with him, and you know, but he's beautiful. You know, what can I say? And he taught me a lot of things, quite a bit of things.
What did he teach you? What kind of things did you? What was it like to be with Billy Strayhorn at a piano when you're singing a song?
Yeah, it was so calm. It was calming, and you could check keys out. I don't care what key you sang. As a matter of fact, I started the song. Next thing you know, it was in the key of B. And you know, they very strange, you know, five sharp. No, but I didn't know anything about that. He said he would sing in that, and then he would modulate into
C or something.
No, B flat.
Oh, B flat, yeah.
Which was really my key.
Right,
but he would go in and just do that sort of thing. But anyway, he was just warm to work with, and we'd have relaxed, have dinner, get back to the piano, and we just got along great with him. And at the time, I must say, at the band, when I joined the band, the bassist was Jimmy Wood, At that time, there's Jimmy Johnson was on drums. And there's another guy, Frankie Dunlap, was on drums.
You played with Monk later.
Right. They had those two drummers there.
No kidding.
Okay. Frankie really don't know that. He in Las Vegas. Frankie Dunlap was on drums along with Jimmy Johnson. So he had his two drummers there, and then Dunlap left and Jimmy Johnson stayed. And next thing we know, Sam Woodyard came back, and Jimmy Johnson is gone. Okay, so we had on in the trumpet section, I'll come down that way, Willie Cook,
Ray Nance?
of course, yeah, Ray Nance. No, I'm talking about the trumpet player.
Shorty Baker?
Yeah, Cootie, I'm sorry. Yeah, Cootie. Shorty Baker. That's right. Yeah. And Moon Mullins. Matter of fact, Eddie Moon Mullins. Matter of fact, he did the first thing I was recorded with Duke. Moon did the chart on Lost in Loveliness. That song was put out.
Wow.
That was my first song recorded with Duke. We recorded in L.A. Lost in Loveliness. And which it was making some noise around the town a whole bit, you know, that kind of thing. And so on the trombone, Jackson, Quentin Jackson, of course Lawrence Brown and Britt Woodman, and Lawrence Brown. Buster didn't come till later. Somebody say Buster Cooper?
That's later.
Yeah, he came.
Russell Procol?
No, we didn't get the saxophones yet.
Remember the trombone?
Okay. Now we get the sax. Then we have of course, yeah, Rabbit there, but on the left side, Paul Gonsalves, Jimmy Hamilton. No. No. I don't go back that far.
They had a seance.
Who was the other one? Of course, Harry Connick, like you said. Russell Procol, Jimmy Hamilton, and Johnny Hodges. Yeah, that was. As a matter of fact, Woody Woody came a little later on, but Cootie Williams had just came back to the band at that time. So Duke did quite a bit of rehearsing. It was like tuning up time and getting new charts and all that, because Tom Whaley came out, and then later on after I joined, Tom Whaley came out, and then Strays came out, and Mercer and all that, they came out, so everybody was there, did a lot of charts, a lot of rehearsing and all that, and then we hit the road. And then we went on into LA and played a club there, and then boom.
When you in the band, I knew Ernie Shepherd came in and played bass.
Yeah, Bernie toward the end.
Toward the end, okay.
Right, matter of fact, Ernie took
Jimmy's.
Aaron Bell's place.
Oh, Aaron, right.
See, and I was in the band before Aaron Bell. Aaron Bell, because Jimmy Woody was still there.
Right.
And then Aaron Bell came in.
You know, we should just mention this about Aaron Bell, the great bass player he's talking about. His daughter is Robin Bell Stevens, who you all may know is heading up Jazzmobile now, and is a wonderful, wonderful person doing so much in the arts.
So Aaron Bell and I, so we just came about the same time. I was there just before him came on into the band, and then cause Jimmy Wood was on his way out. He wanted to live, and then he left and went to Europe.
Right.
And that.
I breathe.
Yeah, right. That's it.
But what amazes me when I listen to the recordings of you with Duke Ellington is, and I've always wanted to ask you this question, that Billy Strayhorn and Ellington, I guess mostly Strayhorn, would write the most outrageous things, the most beautiful things, but the most outrageous things behind you. And I wonder, as a singer, what it must have felt like to sing with these like symphonic backgrounds, and you got to find that melody note in there somewhere, and they're writing some stuff that was like in 14 sharps. I mean,
but for some strange reason, the way they wrote for a vocalist, and you could sing your song. I don't care what they, but that tonic or whatever was right there. Right. You could always hear, So you really had freedom. That's where Strayhorn, where he wrote. I don't care whatever you put in there, that could never get away from that melody. You could always hear your melody. I don't care whatever he put it was magical. I don't know what he did, but that's the way it was. So I never, Never had any problems. Never had any problems with it. Just went on and on. I could sing in key, know my song. And another thing too, when with Ellington, singing with him, you didn't know what you were going to sing at each concert. No, he didn't come before and say, hey, we're going to do so and so, we're going to do so.
Never did a set list.
He would go according to his audience.
Right.
And he'd build his show that way. And build his show, and next thing you know, he'd say, every now and then he might introduce you, but you don't know what it is, you know, what he would introduce you, and then he'd say, blah, 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 blah. I knew that was Love You Madly. Love You Madly, you know.
Right.
Or go into Do Nothing Till You Hear From Me. Because do nothing till you hear. So that's what, so you never knew what you were going to sing. You just knew you had certain songs, you knew those songs, where he was going to put them, that was it. So he built his show that way. That was quite an experience.
Now, when you're on the road with that many guys, you form a partnership. You know, you get a bond with. Who were your main running buddies on the road with Duke?
It was Paul. Paul Gonzalez and Willie Cook.
Look out.
Those two. Oh, yeah, Maranguito was in the band too. Andres, because he took.
Fast forward.
Right. Fast forward, and then he, because I think Cat left. I think something. So matter of fact, Maranguito was there, and Cat wasn't there at the time. So Maranguito had the that's what he called himself, Maranguito. And where were we?
About your running.
Oh yeah, my running money. Those were the two, and so we had a lot of fun, and you know, understand this too. A lot of musicians today don't know, but we didn't make that kind of money. You know, we paid our own hotel bills. We paid bought our own food and whatnot. Bands today, everything is taken care of. We didn't, you know, everything came out. So what I'm trying to say is that I want them to appreciate what's going on now, because when they go up and down the road now, bags taken care of, they taken to the hotel, I mean, going up into the room, don't have to worry about their meals, or, you know, meals at certain times, and they have to worry about their hotel bill. They just, all they had to do was do whatever they had to do, instrument-wise or vocally, so it's a whole different thing today than the time. And then the conditions, but we stayed, but on that bus, the bus was great. We were able to have 2 seats, you know, and whatnot. But when I went out with Leonard before, we had to alternate, you know, so everybody wouldn't be bored and whatnot. So we alternated and whatnot. But anyway, I just wrote that in. When you paid your own hotel, you did this, you did, you know, all those different things. Today, you don't do that. It's a whole other world. And much more bread.
I think it's a very, very important thing to stress, because I know in hindsight, a lot of people look at those days with rosy-colored glasses about all these great musicians out on the road, and I think they forget about the day-to-day reality of.
Right, you know, they, you know, who might be making, you know, the top buck would probably be Johnny Hodges, you know, but all in all the guys who brought that up, Paul Gonzalez. Most of those guys, they stay broke all the time. So whatever little change I had, they could come after me, and I would loan them money. So that's why they stayed on my case, you know. But that's the way it was. So, you know, I mean, the reality of it was a whole different world, man.
I heard Fathead Newman once say the good old days weren't so good.
Yeah, there you go. So you know what I'm talking about. And I came in on the tail end of, you know, that kind of thing. But they up and down that. I'm talking about some one-nighters. Get in that bus and roll on to the next gig and run into certain problems here and there. You know, it was quite a thing. But a great experience.
Milt, can you talk about Duke Ellington, the pianist? Because people don't talk about that very much.
The piano player? Hey, Duke Ellington was great. And with a vocalist, you wouldn't want a greater or more beautiful accompanist. And he could accompany a singer. You can never get lost with Duke. Whatever, he was right there. He was right there, at the bottom, supported you, and you had. I always call him the greatest of company. I said, well, and he didn't mind you saying that. He was he was ready to come a great piano player. He called himself a piano player, and he was just. And the thing about it, he would. Some of the guys, be worn out and whatnot, and be on the road and get ready to do a show. Maybe hit one of these army camps or something like that, out in Timbuktu somewhere. And, the guys get a little taste, here and there, and get ready for the show. So Duke would play almost a concert at the piano before the guys, they stroll on in. Stroll on in. And Duke, Duke don't pay no, but when he was ready to hit his thing, there was no playing around, they knew it. But it took quite a while for them to get to the bandstand. But Duke would play, so he'd write a song, or whatever. and a lot of things too, but we did, like this, I was there when he did the Nutcracker, and he would rehearse on the road, and how he would rehearse, and we played dances. So whatever song it was, he put it in a dance tempo. And they rehearsed it. By the time they got ready to go to get to the recording studio, they knew the song. But it wasn't like, that was the only time they had to rehearse, so he would put it in the tempo. Whatever it was, he put it in the tempo, or if it's a slow tempo, he put it in there. People could still dance, but he'd be rehearsing it. He'd be rehearsing the Nutcracker or whatever. That's what he did.
I know that guys who were in other bands, if you're in the Basie band or if you're in Benny Goodman's band or the other bands, it was that the musicians were like much more regimented, like they're always on the bandstand, all this kind of stuff, and there was much less room for individuality. And from what I understand with the Ellington band, it was like this collection of wild, some individuals who he let have their own personality and didn't force them to conform in a certain way. And the guys I know that were in the band said that he was like, he would have made a great general. He was a great master of men. He was a great psychologist. He knew exactly how to keep this group of very creative people
all individuals and whatnot.
How did he do it? Was it by not doing anything, or was it by doing it with very subtly?
Yeah, very subtly. I never heard him raise his voice at all. Very calm. Guys would do all kinds of things, but Ellington stayed calm, stayed centered, and he was just, and each one, like you said, if you stayed around, there was a certain personality he liked about you, and you were there. And some guys would come in, play with the band for a while. Next thing you know, they were gone. They didn't fit. But it was in a way, it was such a way that it was no, it was calmly. They just sort of floated on out of the band. That was it. And while we were at the Riviera Hotel, there was a problem with rain ants, and when I heard about it on the, there was a sort of a drug problem, and the police swooped down and all that. It was on the strip and so forth, and anyway, after a little while after that, Sinatra came in to check us on out. Came in. I think they say to lend support to Duke and all that bit. But while he was there, his entourage, he shouted out, "Old Man River!" That was one of these. You see, Sinatra, very few people know, is a student of voices, and he recognized voices. So I had, what did he say that for? I was over in the corner. I jumped on Old Man River, I just said, "Give me a key of B flat." And next thing you know, after that, invited to his show. And he was at the Sands. And the next thing I know, I was at the Playboy Club. And I was all behind, quiet as it kept, Sinatra and ABC. And so those are things that happened to me. Playboy Club, and got to go to the mansion and see the bunnies in the swimming in the water.
Look out!
Oh my God! And all that. So I got that time there was Nipsey Russell was there on the show. You know that name, Nipsey Russell, and what was the other gentleman's name? Diagnosis Murder. Dick Van Dyke. Well, Jerry Van Dyke was his brother, who was a comedian. He was on the show there at the time and all that sort of thing. So, and then Dick DeMone came in and checked things out and all that. You know, so just a little facts.
So, Milt, how about the years after Ellington? What happened? Where did you go?
Okay, after Ellington, came in and well, I started doing a lot of jingle work, and you know, things like Kentucky Fried and oh yeah, we're just so anyway, Chevrolet, and then the Chevrolet was the heartbeat of America, those things like that, and there I went into Broadway, and went into Broadway, and he opened with Pearlie on Broadway. So that was my first Broadway show. Noble Moore, Cleavon Little, and the guy that used to substitute for coming to stand by for Cleavon Little, a guy named Morgan Freeman. You know, so in that show, and that show we did the. Oh my God. Okay. Oh, all right. Okay, I did do that. So anyway, let me see now. Where was I? Pearlie, right? Pearlie. Okay. Now before Pearlie, was Harry Belafonte. And Harry Belafonte, I sang in his, you know, he had the chorus going. This is right after do. Well, I was the first male to sing solo on the stage with him, and it was at the what was it, the Caesar's Palace and whatnot. So anyway, after that, then it came into the jingle things and came into Broadway, and Broadway with Pearlie. Pearlie then went into Raisin, the musical Raisin, yeah, which is a musical based on Raisin the Sun, and Pearlie was based on Pearlie Victorious. So these musicals, and with the Pearlie we did the Ed Sullivan Show, and you see, then after that, went down the road a little bit. Then I went on a national tour as a principal, playing the role of Asagai. And well, on Broadway, I performed on Broadway for a while, and a young lady whose mother is here, Debbie Allen, was my love interest on Broadway. And I sang the song Alaio. And so very few people knew that. So anyway, and did you know that we did mention that Mrs. Allen is here, right? Oh, this is Debbie Allen's mother. Miss Allen, who is the cousin to my wife. My wife just passed, and they were first cousins, something like that. But anyway, that's right. So anyway, after that, we went on the road, did the national tour, and in between that, I went to Japan with Porgy and Bess. We did the first production of Porgy and Bess as the Undertaker. Then after that, there was a group. I did a recording with them, and a well-known group today. They did not sing. Some of the guys, I was the bass voice in that group, on the recording. YMCA. YMCA. All the village people did. They did not sing. That's right. I represented the, the leather man with the big mustache. He was considered the bass, but I did the recording. There was another gentleman, about 2 or 3 gentlemen. So the only real voice was Victor Willis. Victor Willis was who again was married to Felicia. Felicia was shot now. And so they did it, so I went on a national tour with them. We went on a tour with Gloria
Gaynor.
Gloria Gaynor. I will survive.
Village people.
Right.
Be Gloria Gaynor.
Black Women's theme song.
And we went to Japan. And so anyway, Japan, Australia, and they had to take me along. But what they did, as a matter of fact, another guy that came in there, Ray, his sister's world famous, Simpson, Valerie Simpson's brother.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Ray Simpson came into the group after Victor left. And so we went on this went to Japan. No, he was with the group, so he took over after. He was more or less in training. But anyway, we did, and so we had to, they put a curtain. Big thing, everybody, all these people coming out to the stadium and whatnot. But we were behind the stadium. So picture this, they had these speakers on the stage. They had choreography. They studied their choreography, knew the songs, so they didn't have to mouth them. So what they did, they were not mic'd. We were mic'd. And but they were out there singing like as if they were singing. I mean, whatever voice they had, they were singing. And so, so that made it look real, right? So after that tour, so in other words, they couldn't just play records, and whatnot, because they had a star in there, Gloria Gaynor. So they had to have us on that because they couldn't program us to go through. But later on, when they were on their own by themselves and just doing the places like the 5-4, not 5-4, but it's a place, ballroom over there, Studio 54, because there's a 5-4 ballroom in California. Studio 54. They would have the speakers, and the speakers would be blasting us. And they would be, so with them singing, not acting like they were singing, you figured that they were singing the songs themselves, but they were not. They was just doing the choreography. And our voices were out there on the ring, so I want to clear that up for everybody. Village people, we did the singing. And so they went on, around the world, but so they did their shows, whenever they did, what was the name of the dance at that time?
The YMCA.
No, the song.
That's right.
No, the song itself. I mean, what was the dance they called it? Hustle. Hustle and all that. Yeah, but that was the kind of disco. That's the word I'm looking for. Disco. So they played all these discos. So all they did was put their records on, and they go through their records with their. I did the soundtrack for their movie. Can't Stop the Music. That flopped, the whatnot. You can't stop the music. So I got In the Navy was one of the other songs. Anybody know the other songs? There was one of them. It was YMCA. In the Navy. What's the other? There was another big one.
I thought that was
Macho Man. I've been trying to think of that for weeks. Macho Man. I got to be a macho man. And we did that in the studio in New York City. And when they put it out, it became a smash hit. And they haven't looked back since. I think Macho came out first. Then YMCA.
Right.
Right, so that was it. So then in the Navy, and you can't stop the music, those things. So that's another part of my dealing with my career, as you say, after that.
Now, I'm sorry, being such a serious musician, did that disappoint you in a way?
No, you know, it was a gig.
Yeah.
You know, it was an easy
Got
gig.
paid.
Right.
You know, it was easy. You know, there was nothing to it, so it didn't bother me. Because I tell you why. I was able to fit in anything because of that church background that I had, that Pentecostal thing. You know, the music that we sang. You know, the Jubilee and all that sort of thing. So I could move from one to the other. So I like all music. I put it that way. You know, whatever it is, and that was just a gig. And when called in to do the session, and so you didn't know it was going to be Macho Man. You didn't know it was going to be, I didn't know it was the Village People. I just went in and do a session, and that's what happened. And became the big smash hit, and everybody thought they were singing, but they were not singing. So that way. Okay.
You all messed up now. You all messed up.
Big money, big money, big money, big money. That's, you know. So they treated me well because they had to have the bass, they had to have the bottom on there. So that was been my saving grace in the music world because there wasn't too many of us around, and you know that sort of thing. So after all that, then it's the Metropolitan Opera.
What a transition.
And that's jingles and whatnot, and this and that. And then in Metropolitan Opera, and then I had to became a Porgy and Bess.
I saw you there. I saw that.
Right, okay. And see, you had to, each one, as a matter of fact, there's a young lady here who performed with me. Oh, with Porgy and Bess.
Raise your hand.
Yeah. So this is the premiere production. James Levine conducting. Grace Rumbury, I believe, was here. And anyway, so you had to, when you audition, you had to audition, and you did not go in there singing Porgy, anything arias from Porgy and Bess. You had to sing an aria from a major opera.
Yeah.
And so I had my song. Going from way back. From Simon Boccanegra called Il Lacerato Spirito. And I sang that and boom, got into it.
Get on down.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? A te l'estremo addio, palagio altero, freddo sepolcro dell'angolo mio, ne a proteggerlo mal sì. Oh maledetto, oh vile seduttore, e tu, vergine, soffristi, rapita lei, la vergine al corona, ah, pum, che dissipa, deliro, ah, mi perdona, pum, pum, il lacerato spirito, pum, del mesto genitore, pum, e a proteggerlo, mal sì, il dolore, so that's it, you know. I didn't know the workings of the opera at that time. You know, we had the, agents and all that. So, but I went in as a chorus member. Okay. So what had happened? The general was supposed to do the song, the Undertaker. Wasn't checking things out. So this guy named Greg Baker told, I forgot the producer of the show, hey, check Milt out, because we were on the road with Raisin. And Greg Baker, so I was singing out there, all of you. So anyway, so they asked me to audition. I had a special audition, and I went and sang, and for Leonard Devine. When is it Leonard Devine? James Levine. Yeah, James Levine. He was out there, and the next thing I know, I see, the out of saucer stand now, my sister. Blah, 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 blah. Next thing I had to part. Boom, boom. Then I became a principal, and that's how that happened. And I became, now did the premiere production, and I opened up as The Undertaker, and that's how that happened. So I just went in, just do the gig, and I could have gone and, auditioned as a principal, but I didn't know the workings of that sort of thing. I just, when everybody had been auditioning and all that sort of thing, so as God would have it, that's the way it came. What it was for you, it'll happen, and that's what happened. So that, and after that, moving on down the line, and we did performances for. We did Christmas with Kathleen Battle and Jesse Norman, spectacular and whatnot, for at the Carnegie Hall, and so then on that particular show, there's a gentleman by the name of Wynton Marsalis was performing. So anyway, so he has. I think I did some performances at Lincoln Center. One of them. It was the early part of that. So he asked me, say, agreed. We went on. I talked with him. And he asked me, say, would you like to go on the road with us? With the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra going out on the road. And I said, yeah, great. I'd love to. So that's how that happened. And so then he was doing all Ellington, and so they did a whole lot of charts and whatnot with Dave Berger, and that's what happened with me with Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra. So I sang with them, and that's the history of that. That's how that happened. So that's my story, folks.
I have to tell you something. We wind up saying this more times than not, but it's really true. I can't think of more places that I've been in with a group of people for 2 hours plus. A wonderful audience this evening. On top of everything else. It really is.